Exactly.
And that's
But you know, Judge, one of the things we've done and what we do, for instance, I think it was a few weeks ago, we carried 8 kids to the courts, from 14 down to 12, I believe.
Yeah, they were young
Anyway,
kids.
what I want to do is start allowing these kids to see justice from this side rather than the other side. Young boys, we carried, and they got to the courts, and it was escorted around, showing them some of the courts. And we were blessed enough to see one of the trials going on. The young man that he had harassed a young girl for so long that she was trying to commit suicide, and they sit through that. They saw that. Also, we carried 120 some people to Austin. Kids never been to Austin, in the rotunda, in the gallery, and just we need to introduce our kids to more positive things. And what we did after that, we went to LBJ Library. They got a chance to see some of the history, past history, and you're exactly right. We got to have preventive modes for our kids. Sometimes we say a kid is so bad that just useless. That's the kid we need to embrace and try to turn that kid. Every time we change the heart and the mind of an individual, that's less crime we have to deal with up the road. Right. So I think it would serve all of us well as pastors and community leaders that we get our kids acclimated to positive things, get around positive people. I was blessed. A young man came up in our church. He was the president of Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Foundation. And naturally he carried me to New York, and I got a chance to see some of the people that was on his board. David Stern was on his board, and people like that, when you can't help but have a feel that this is a positive thing for our kids when we introduce them to positive people and positive things, compared to always seeing a lot of blight, a lot of anger. And for some reason, we're permeated now with a lot of anger, Judge, and communities. My take on that is that it has to start with the homes. I see too many kids that we say, well, he's just a bad kid. You said a while ago when you changed, we got to change that formula, turn a bad kid into a good criminal. We got to change that, and I think we do that by introducing them to positive things.
Well, I agree, and of course, being 62 years of age, I grew up, everything on television, for example, was Leave It to Beaver, and Ward and June Cleaver, and Mom was home in the afternoon wearing an apron baking cookies for the kids.
Exactly.
That's not the environment most children grow up in today.
They're exposed to so much now, so much.
I think it's time for all levels of government, but certainly county, to quit wringing their hands and saying, well, we think every child ought to be in a 2-parent household. Well, okay, ideally, but that's not the world we live in.
Right.
So let's not take it out on the kids.
Right.
Let's figure out, let's meet them where they are.
Right.
So that they're not punished for decisions that some adults made. And of course, the other thing that we have got to get a grip on, the whole drug issue. I hate to be the old fogey talking about when I was young, but nobody offered me drugs when I was 10, 12 years old. And so these children are growing up a lot faster than we grew up.
A lot faster.
And we need to understand the things that they're faced with, and we need programs, and not to get off into boring bureaucratic stuff.
That's okay.
But one of my main projects at the county is to go to what's called zero-based budgeting. The reason is, as finances become tight in all governments, the tendency is to say, well, we're just going to cut all programs 10%, for example. But that means if there's a new program you really need, it doesn't get created.
Right.
Exactly.
And so I would rather us look at all the programs that are in place every year and say, rather than doing this, maybe we ought to be doing this.
Of course.
And that's where community input becomes really important. And in an area like Sunnyside, most of it's urban area, suburban area. The county dollars, they pay the same county taxes as people who live out in the far reaches, and yet there aren't that many county roads or necessarily even county parks. So how should we be spending our dollars to improve that community? And that's where we need community input. And I'm sure Commissioner Lee Let me hasten to add, he's the person that gets to receive that input. I'm not trying to take over Commissioner Lee's precinct.
Okay. You know, and also, Judge, you just said about programs. I think also the program that you have in place, you take a look at them, scrutinize them. The programs that are not working, they should be combined with the program that are working. And I think what happens a lot of times, it's a budget type thing too, because if you got programs stretched all across the county and all across the city, and they're not working, well, they're ineffective. And what we're trying to do is get some effective program, because we want these kids to be better. And you said not a perfect world, but these kids are going to make mistakes. And we're living in a different society. When you say you raised up doing Leave It to Beaver, you know, well, I was before that, Judge. But anyway, all you see now is violence on the TV, even on the video game. And I think sometimes kids spend too much time on these video games. And you even got the parents playing with them.
Oh, I know.
That we need to get the parents to grow up sometime too.
Well, and now you raise another subject, and it's back on the health side. You know, we have too many babies having babies too.
Yes.
And
again, prevention.
How do you get to that? And you know, we live in a world where politically levels of government have become afraid to talk about things. Sorry, we got to get back to the reality.
Right, of course.
Yeah, it was so funny to hear you say about when you, because I came up the same era that you did. I watched I Love Lucy. I know that I love that Ricky and Lucy had 2 children. But I always saw 2 separate beds on the show. You always saw June Cleaver. They had kids, but they had 2 separate beds.
Yeah.
And you never once saw them without their clothes on. They were all, Mom was always, like you say, in the kitchen. Our kids are exposed to so much now. Little bitty babies can tell you stuff that they've seen on television that they shouldn't be seeing. You know, it used to be you only got so much. I came from the era of putting a piece of plastic over the television and coming with color television. That's how far back I go. So these kids are exposed to so much now, and some of them are telling you stuff that they shouldn't. I believe in the education of the children, but I think that there's a limit that you should go as you're bringing these kids up. Kids need to know that it's not, like Pastor was saying, we took the kids down to the court so they could see what it was like. Because too many of our kids, I've had young kids, 14 and 15 year old, it ain't nothing to go to jail. Oh, it's no big deal to go to jail. And they need to get that attitude. They need to get rid of that attitude, because they don't seem to realize that once you get a record,
I know,
your life is ruined. I mean, for the rest of your life, you've got something following you. And I guess as far as the community is concerned, and as far as we're concerned within the church, the ones that we have within the church, and I have to say this, we've got good kids in our church, and we need to keep pumping our good kids up. We've got football players. We've got kids that are A students in school. We need to keep positive stuff around them, because when they leave home to go off to school, they're going to be exposed to a whole lot of stuff. So we need to start putting the groundwork, the foundation, before they leave from our site.
You know, you mentioned football players. All of, particularly boys, you know, grow up thinking, someday I'm going to be this professional. And the truth is, we're not.
No,
you know,
it's not for everybody.
Very few.
Very few make it.
And I use the example, I was driving across the state a couple months ago, and I came back realizing you go through every small town, and they've got on the water tower, it says state champions. Not once have I seen one that says national merit finalist.
Right.
You know,
right.
And so we've got to support these other activities.
Exactly.
You talk about taking these kids down to the courtroom. If just one of them, because of that experience, said, not only am I not going to be a convict, I want to be that judge.
Right. Exactly.
Those are the things that we got to get people focused on.
You know, we got a young man that plays football for one of our local schools, and we support him. And as a matter of fact, I think they went undefeated last year until it's playoff game. But I was so proud the other day. I'm sitting watching the news, and they interviewed him, and the way he conducted himself, not well, you know, and all. this young man is really being reared by his mom, a single mom, and I mean, she's doing a tremendous job with him. And this young man, what amazes me, he played football that night, that Saturday night, and Sunday morning he was in Sunday school.
Well, and this has nothing to do with government, but it goes all the way back. I was elected to the legislature in 1978, a long time ago. And I remember somebody talking about how hard I worked, and I went, you know what? I met a single mom with 4 kids who worked 2 jobs. Nah, I'll never think that I work. Those are the people who work hard. And how do we at all levels of government support her or people like her?
Exactly.
Because that's the reality of what we live in. And while, you know, I'm a transportation guy, I really like to build infrastructure and roads and all that, and that's nice. But we also have to realize that we don't live in the world that we used to live in.
Of course.
And we can moan about the circumstances, but I think we really need to make programs work for everybody.
Okay. And I'm glad that you said that ideally it would be mom, dad, 2 kids, a dog and a cat.
Dog
you know,
and a cat.
Ideally that's that's an ideal. That's what Norman Rockwell might put on a poster for you. But that's not the world we live in now. The world we live in now is mom is struggling, trying to do what she can for her children. We've got a lot of, like you said, babies having babies. We've got a lot of kids that are going astray. So on all levels, government, clergy, we all, it's going to take everybody coming together to help these kids. We're getting ready to close now. This has been really good to have you with us, Judge Emmett. You're a wealth of information. I'm just so glad you chose to come back to visit with us. If you want to see this show airs Thursday night at 10:30, Comcast 326, Converter Box 38.1, and we do put it on YouTube. If you have a show that you would like or issue that you'd like for us to address, we ask that you call the number 713-731-7050 and let us know what you would like to see brought to this show. And before we close, we want to send a shout out to one of our members, to our pastor's grandson, Byron Nash. We want to let him know that the prayers are going up for you, and that God is able, and we're praying for a speedy recovery for you. But we do thank you for coming to joining us today, Judge Ed Emmett.
Thank you for having me.
We will be calling you with questions that we know that the county judge can answer for us. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for being here with us. This has been a real good show. And we look next week, we will have Congressman Al Green will be on with us.